children and adults is reaching epidemic proportions across the developed and developing world. By 2030, it is predicted that over 1 billion people will be obese, with some of the largest growth in Mexico, Brazil, India, China. Deforestation and forest degradation contribute to 24% of human-induced greenhouse gas emissions. Depression is the leading cause of healthy years lost due to disability, and burden being 50% higher than females and males. Depression rates in India are the highest in the world, with almost 30%. Threats to biodiversity are numerous, and human activity is responsible for most of them. It is estimated that the current species extinction rate is between 1,000 to 10,000 times higher than it would be naturally be. Habitat loss and degradation affects 86% of all threatened birds, 86% of threatened mammals, 6 to 88% of the threatened amphibians. As life expectancy increases, populations are increasingly facing more health risks due to physical inactivity. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
A number of our guests have other appointments to go to as well, but Dr. Yam Malla from the IUCN in Nepal will also be speaking. So we'll get Dr. Yam to do that now and then do some questions. Let's go now. So hold just before, as Dr. Yam's coming up, we might just take a couple of questions for Mr. Ratu, as he has an appointment to go to immediately. So if anyone in the audience has any questions that they'd like to ask, we'll take a couple of questions now. Or not. Thank you. I'd like to really sincerely thank your contribution and recognise just how important it is to see Fiji and the developing world embracing healthy parks, healthy people, and that it does resonate and connect with communities, and has done. So thank you. Yam, over to you, sir. I'll invite you up as a representative of the IUCN, Dr. Yam Malla. Welcome, and I'll hand directly over to you for your presentation on health outcomes and nature from Nepal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would just like to thank the organizers, Park Victoria, for thinking about Nepal, and also giving me this opportunity to speak and share some of the experiences that we have in Nepal about healthy park and healthy people. As Ian said, that now I actually have to rush off after this presentation. There's a press conference that I have to be associated, and but I would have loved to actually stay here a bit longer and listen to the question and answer session. So first of all, I'd just like to set some of the context of Nepal, because many of you may not know about Nepal, and then some of the work that we have done together with the Park Victoria, and some of the opportunities in the future that we may have. Actually, in Nepal, we have had actually a lot of emphasis and a lot of attention given to establishing national park and wildlife reserves. But there are very few areas, open space in urban areas. Mostly they are focusing on the rural areas, and the urban areas of Nepal is growing very fast. The urban population is growing very fast. So very little attention is given to actually create recreational spaces and amenity spaces for urban dwellers. But there are some which are used very extensively by local people, by Nepalese, but also by international visitors. As I said, 80% of the total population of the country live in the rural areas, and many live in and around protected areas and benefit from park revenues directly to local people. But the health benefit they derive from park is not very clear, and we may have to do some research on that. The countries and the cities have continued to grow with annual growth rate of 5% and even more than 5% actually. And Nepal is listed among the countries with the highest urban population growth. Now this is just a couple of views of how the urban areas of Nepal at the moment looking like. But this is the Kathmandu Valley, and then the space, and then the people are crowded in this open space also. So as I said, these urban dwellers are actually, they are suffering from the lack of green space and being increasingly disconnected from nature and its benefits. Very limited source of people to relax and to have exposure to nature for health impact. This is the map of Nepal, which have some of these areas of national park and wildlife reserves. But as I said, most of them are actually located in the rural areas. With some of the areas are very remotely placed. There are some national parks very close to urban areas. For example, this area here is in very close to Kathmandu, and also this is Chittor National Park. But other places are very remotely located. One of the main focus of the national park and the priorities of national park and wildlife reserves is just fulfilling direct livelihood benefits of the people living in and around the national parks, and the focus is to protect the wild animals and plant species. So in a country like Nepal, it's not quite clear whether the experience of Nepal could be actually replicated in other parts of the similar kind of countries, more in similar countries. So we may actually have to need to adapt in terms of health benefits to protected area to society. In Nepalese context, to date, the HPHP, the idea of a healthy park and healthy people, has not been very well tested. And there have been some, we may start thinking about some pilot HPHP initiatives. And who knows, some of the Nepalese experience could be actually adapted to other parts of the developing context. As Ian said in his opening remarks, this Ayush in Nepal and Parks Victoria has just convened a 2.5-day workshop, and some 32 representatives from relevant government ministries, departments, and public and park authorities actually attended. And the first time actually, the workshop actually drew the people from various departments like environment, health, education, tourism, and development sectors, discuss nature and health issues. Usually, what happens when you organize this national parks workshop, you try to bring people from the national parks and forestry sector, and try to kind of not think about the people from education sector and health sector could also come and make contribution. So that was the first experience of Nepal with Victoria Parks, to actually draw people from other sectors, including health. And it actually was able to actually raise awareness of healthy park and healthy people initiative and ways for its application in Nepal. And also, I think, and thinking about, we talk about infrastructure building like roads and schools and health clinics, but we should be also thinking about investment in parks as part of the infrastructure for national development strategy, contributing to local and national economies and health and well-being. And after that, after the work, so IUCN took lead in preparing Healthy Park and Healthy People concept in consultation with multi-stakeholders. And IUCN also facilitated the process of getting Ministry of Forest and Soil Conservation and Government Nepal's approval for some of the Healthy Park, Healthy People initiatives and submit to potential donors, and continue to put forward the idea at various national and international conferences. And then there was a follow-up workshop at the International Healthy Parks and Healthy People Congress 2002 in Melbourne in April, that Ian also mentioned earlier. And we actually engaged representatives from health and environment, and some people from health sectors, medical doctors who were also were sponsored to go to this workshop. And we have been actually approaching development partners nationally and internationally to realize adoption of Healthy Park and Healthy People philosophy in Nepal. So I think in the future, like in this, when we talk about the partnership and collaboration, usually in forest sector management and natural resource management, we basically think about the concerned departments and local committees. And then donor initiatives and maybe NGOs and civil societies. But we may actually have to think rather differently in terms of building partnership in Healthy Park and Healthy People, and especially between government institutions, private sectors, and development partners, research institutions, NGOs, and local government. And for example, in terms of the potential partners for Healthy Park and Healthy People in Nepal could be like Department of National Parks, Wildlife Conservation, and Department of Health, Department of Education, and Department of Tourism. And especially the health and education and tourism are not very well considered when we think about building partnership. And also municipalities and village development committees, and civil societies organizations, and Federation of Community Forest Users, and NGOs, for example, in National Trust for Nature Conservation, which are actually doing, and then the private sector. And I should also mention that the media can also play a very important role in this. And then empower local communities to be stewards of the parks and appreciate links between health and nature. Usually the parks are actually managed, and it's not very clear who manages the parks, and it's the local authorities. But how can actually the Department of National Park and Wildlife Conservation, Department of Forest, and Department of Health could also be part of the park management. And more importantly, also we need to think about engaging youth and women in raising awareness and education about Healthy Park and Healthy People. So I think in terms of doing research in the future, it is very important to actually show, as the earlier speaker also mentioned about the various kinds of diseases and how that is actually impacting the human health. So what we really need to actually do, think about research evidence to show the link between contact with nature and improved health and well-being outcomes for people in Nepal. And for example, WHO, the World Health Organization's definition that was a long time ago, 1946, on health and well-being, this is still relevant. It says that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. In addition, we consider at meaningful leisures as an indicator of well-being relevant to green space access and use. In Nepal, 50% of country's mortality is associated with infectious disease, and 50% mortality with non-communicable diseases. And we believe that preventive nature of the Healthy Park and Healthy People philosophy will contribute to addressing non-communicable health issues of Nepal. So research and documentation health and benefits of Healthy Park could be very helpful. But then, to do this kind of, starting this new initiative, you need some resources and skill about communication, about promoting Healthy Park and Healthy People. First of all, the research and knowledge management, linking health and nature in both urban and rural areas, not just the rural areas. And research to rally the tourism sector, nature and culture based, around the healthy park and healthy people concept. And we also need to have nature-based health policy, particularly targeting nature-based health programs. And we need to raise awareness and education and training to government agencies, park authorities, and civil societies and communities. This is all I have to say this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaste, Binyam. Again, apologies, but Dr. Yan will need to move quickly to his next media conference. So thank you, and greatly appreciate your time and contribution to highlighting the work of Healthy Parks, Healthy People in Nepal. Thank you.
Do we have time to ask any questions?
Yes.
There you go. You have a question, perhaps one or two quick questions, given his time precious.
You need to speak.
And you'll need a mic, possibly, or talk very loudly.
Microphone. Dr. Young,
You might have to sit here, Dr. Young.
Okay, I'll even come up.
Yes.
We can come up there together.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, okay.
Okay, my name is Jeff McNeely, and full disclosure, I spent 2 years in Nepal, right up on the border with Tibet in one of those protected areas, but it wasn't a protected area when I was there. But one of the things that I noticed and that I wanted to ask you about is this was 2 weeks walk from the nearest road, and the people who were up there were utterly dependent on medicinal plants for their health. And the issue is, once an area where people have been collecting medicinal plants, both for their own use and for export, has been converted into a protected area, how does that affect their access to the medicinal plants upon which they depend? So are you able to establish regulations that enable them to continue to harvest? What are the limits? What happens with over-harvesting? Becomes a bit of a challenge. But to me, this is an important part of healthy parks, healthy people.
I'd like to get you to respond. Yeah.
Very quickly, yes. I think this is a huge issue, and thanks very much, Jeff, for raising this question. Yeah, this particular session was more about park in the urban areas. I was focusing on there. Yes, definitely. I think there's a lot of people depend on these medicine plants coming from the forest, both inside and within and outside the national park. And there's numerous accounts and of the written material and publications on that, and I think that's very important aspect of healthy park and healthy people, definitely. And I think when we do the research, I think it is not always this articulated in the way that the medicinal plants that are collected from the nature, and then how they are actually, because mostly people just think about how much money people are making by collecting this medicine plants from, and then how much they are selling. But I think in terms of this is more about how can we actually bring the urban dwellers in contact with nature. This is important. But I think this Jeff has raised a very important point, and this also have to be, when we do the research, we have to look into this aspect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next speaker, Miss Diana Allen from the US Park Service. So we've moved from developing countries to from a very small country to perhaps one of the larger countries in the US. So I'll hand over to Diana. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to present on our view of healthy parks, healthy people from the U.S. National Park Service experience. And we have embraced the Healthy Parks, Healthy People approach. And so I'd like to first begin by defining healthy parks, healthy people for the Park Service. We view healthy parks, healthy people as a holistic approach to health and well-being of all species and the planet we share. So we have this holistic approach that recognizes the role of parks in contributing to people's physical, mental, and spiritual health and social well-being. So I've been asked to respond to a few questions, 5 questions I will respond to. One being why we got involved, one being what we have done, an overview of the partnerships we feel are important, research gaps that we have identified, and resources we believe that are needed in order to undertake this sort of work. So I wanted to speak to why it is that the U.S. National Park Service feels compelled to adopt the Healthy Parks, Healthy People philosophy. But first I just want to acknowledge that why, well, we credit Parks Victoria Australia, who invented this approach and coined the term, which resonates very well with our agency and what we're finding nationally. So thank you for that. When we look at this, we see a moral imperative for the Park Service, and we look at the social context and where we find ourselves.